Whoa, can you guys believe that this is the last video in our series? Willie and I have a special video for you guys next week. It will tie in all the ideas of what we've discussed in the past 3 video series that we completed. For this video, I have a list of 10 happiest countries in the world in which to live. This information is from the website called cntraveler.com. The link is in the description below, so please check that out. Willie and I have been working hard to get all kinds of information to you. So far, we've discussed quantum understanding and the link to manifestation and happiness. We've discussed the power of frequency and vibration. The 369 came up many times. And lastly, we talked about all things happy and positive. Willie's channel is called Entertainment Launcher, and my channel, again, is called WilLory Show. Please subscribe to both so you don't miss a thing. Happiness is a difficult thing to measure, but one initiative at the United Nations has been trying to figure this out. Every year, the UN Sustainability Development Solutions Network publishes its World Happiness Report. I don't know if you've heard of this. This is a study that looks at the connection between happiness and development, all while encouraging policymakers to place more of the emphasis on the former. Around 1,000 people in each UN member state rate their quality of life on a scale of 0 to 10, while researchers cull data from the 6 areas: GDP per capita, life expectancy, social support available, trust and corruption, perceived freedom to make life decisions, and generosity. The World Happiness Report from 2020 was released recently. And while the results follow previous trends, the list is a little more interesting amid the COVID-19 pandemic. You can imagine it would be different. The report paid special attention to evaluate how different governments have dealt with the pandemic and how trust in these governments is directly related to overall happiness. Even though the top 10 list has remained virtually the same year over year, we still recommend checking out the full list below. Who knows, maybe reading about these places will put a smile on your face. And that's the goal. Number 10, Australia. Australia made the cut this year with high scores in life expectancy and GDP per capita. One main takeaway from the Institute's continuing research is that if you want to be happy, the first step is to stop stressing about how happy you are and go for a bike ride. Biking is one of the most popular ways to get around Australia, so we suspect riding may help out with happiness rankings. If you need further proof, just check out the number 2 spot. Now, number 9, New Zealand. Sure to fuel an already burning rivalry, New Zealand beat its neighbor Australia, who didn't even make the top 10 last year. Condé Nast Traveler readers say, year after year, the Kiwis are a warm, welcoming bunch. But according to the UN's research, a lot of that comes from satisfaction not only when they're out and about, but also in the workplace. We would guess the country's vast natural wealth, its beaches, vineyards, and mountains play a huge role too. Number 8, Luxembourg. Luxembourg made quite the upward leap from 14th to 10th, bumping top 10 darling Canada and Australia down a few pegs. With a population of under 600,000, the small country offers high salaries and a strong social security system to help its citizens after retirement. But before you jump to conclusions that the money is actually buying happiness in Luxembourg, the country has many other perks that have nothing to do with money. This includes a great healthcare system and excellent work-life balance. This may probably be due in part to the mandatory 5 weeks of vacation time. Number 7 is Sweden. This year, Sweden remains in one of the top spots. A high GDP per capita, which it shares with many of the Nordic neighbors, is not the sole reason either. An emphasis on social equality that is built into the education system starting in kindergarten, 16 months of paid family leave that can be split between a couple after a new child is welcomed into a family, and free daycare also makes Sweden the best country for women, according to a separate study. Basically, an emphasis on work-life balance leads to a happier populace. Number 6 is Norway. Norway has been dropped in this ranking since 2017, when it held the top spot, and this year it comes in at 6th happiest country in the world. But there's not too much to complain about. The mix of a well-integrated government, welfare system, and a thriving economy built on responsible management of its natural resources, good riddance fossil fuel-powered cars. This means very few are left behind, and the feeling of social support, trust in government, and economic well-being that comes from that all contribute to overall happiness. Number 5 is the Netherlands. The biggest stat from the Netherlands this year, that is happiness levels have barely changed. We're talking less than 0.03% between 2005 and 2020. And in the Netherlands, it turns out happiness starts young. A 2013 UNICEF report rated Dutch children are the happiest in the world based on a number of metrics related to education, well-being, safety, and health. Vincent van Gogh was the exception, not the rule. Number 4 is Iceland. Iceland ranks high in terms of the proportion of respondents who said that they felt like they had a fellow citizen to count on when the going gets rough. This perhaps became most obvious in the wake of the country's post-2007 financial collapse and subsequent revitalization. You'd think that the perceptual flood of American tourists into this location might have dealt a blow to the residents' happiness. It's got to be a little harder to get the dinner reservation than it used to be, after all. But when it comes to well-being, the Icelanders are unfazed. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that they can always escape to the city, to a countryside that looks like another planet. Number 3 is Switzerland. This moved up 3 spots this year. In a country where everything is voted on, from how many vacation days workers should have to how many immigrants should be allowed into the country, and also referendums down to the local level, perhaps many times a year. The system of direct democracy means that Swiss citizens feel an unparalleled sense of participation in their country's evolution, from landmark decisions on human rights to whether a new traffic light should be installed in their neighborhood. The Swiss are known to be insular, and it can be off-putting to first-time visitors. But there is a strong social fabric held together by a belief that every voice matters, which can go a long way towards feeling content. Number 2 is Denmark. Denmark remains in the number 2 spot this year. The country rates near the top of all reported metrics, life expectancy, social support, and generosity among them. But it is also a country hugely committed to renewable energy production. 39.1% of its energy was wind generated in 2014. Home to the world's most bike-friendly city and a coastline that you could spend a lifetime exploring. The country's happiness certainly comes in part from a respect for the planet that it's built on. A recent study from the Copenhagen-based Happiness Research Institute, whose existence is probably reason enough for a top spot, narrows down Denmark's happiness to a number of different categories, including trust in the government, economic security, financial freedom, civil participation, and work-life balance. The number 1 spot, guys, is Finland. For the 4th year in a row, Finland is number 1 when it comes to happiness. The country consistently ranks among the top education systems in the world, occasionally beaten out by countries like South Korea, Japan, and Singapore. Much of that success comes from a widespread reverence for teachers, who are required to have a master's degree. Their education is state-funded as well, and a pedagogical system that focuses less on quantitative testing and more on experiential learning and equal opportunity. So there you have it. Canada is not even on the list. We as Canadians are always so proud of ourselves as being a kind and polite people, but I guess that doesn't really relate necessarily to happiness. Thank you so much for watching this. Please stay tuned for next week's video. Willie and I, again, are very excited to share the last video with you guys, and maybe there'll be some surprises as well. I really hope you have the most wonderful day and be positively happy. I love you. Mwah.